Hey guys, I'm Laura. Thanks for watching this episode of the Undistracted podcast. This is a place where we learn from our guests how we can be better at building our lives intentionally around our passions, our purpose, and deal with some of the stuff that gets in the way of that. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel so you see more conversations like this. Subscribe to Undistracted with Laura Bennett wherever you listen to your podcast as well. Today we're hearing from Tauren Wells. Tauren is a 10-time Grammy Award nominee. He's won a stack of Dove Awards and others. And we're talking about his new album, Joy in the Morning. And with that, Tauren talks about finding his own sense of purpose and meaning, how that's changed over the course of his life, what it's meant to him in marriage to go in with a personal sense of why, and so much more. It's a giant dose of life advice for everyone. As we kick off this conversation, Tauren talks about how doing what you love doesn't have to be motivated by money. I hope you enjoy this episode of Undistracted.
Now, obviously, you have to pay your bills and,
Yeah.
I've got a wife and 4 kids, so I have to be doing something. It is important to remember that there is more than money to be made. Money does not make a life. Money does not make a person, and exposes a person. So getting your internal world ordered, your priorities and your values established, your character defined, those are the things that really outlast currency.
You recently said that we lose our way in life when we lose our why.
That is good.
It was so good. I was like, yes, you just need to preach this and get more people to hear it. But it's so true. We lose our way when we lose our why. How have you defined your why, and what would you say that it is?
That's a great question. My why has been a work in progress. So total disclosure, I think I saw that quote like scrolling through Instagram or something. So someone else said it. I can't remember who, but Simon Sinek has kind of famously nailed down this idea around the why of our life. And I would suggest to anyone who has not read the book Start With Why to read that book. Simon Sinek, Start With Why. Just because it's so important that you get to answering that question. And I started asking myself that question. This is going to make me sound old, but probably like 14 or 15 years ago, because I really wanted to figure out what my purpose in life was. Now, I didn't have the language of Start With Why, but I was definitely trying to figure out my life's mission statement. And that has evolved and developed over time. And I really feel like I've been able to refine it. I feel like you should be able to share your why, your life's mission statement, in like a Twitter 140 characters or less, 240 characters or less. So mine is to call greatness out of others. It's bigger than music. It's more than communication. If you're a fashion designer, a blogger, if you work in an office or business space, or if you work in the sports world, your why is bigger than that function that you serve every day. I like to break it down for people like this. You have your identity, you have your calling, and you have assignments. So the identity is the big picture. That is who you are. Now, me, I believe in Jesus. I do the best I can to follow Jesus. He defines my identity. When you strip away my title as a husband, as a father, as a music artist, and all of these other things, I am a child of God. He defines me. No one can take that away, because no one gave that to me but God. That is a very, very important thing to have established, because the second thing is our calling. That's the why. That is that thing that wakes us up every morning with great determination, passion, and energy. And my calling, as I said, is to call greatness out of others. Now, the third part of this is the assignment. And to me, that's how I say there are specific ways that God calls us to fulfill our calling in different seasons of our lives. Right now, Laura is the woman who is leading this podcast. She's cultivating ideas and bringing great truth to people. I'm sure that you do many other things, but that's the capacity that I know you in this moment. But this season of your life may come to an end. If you wrap up your identity and your calling, when the assignment changes, you're going to feel lost and not know who you are. But if you can define these things and know that today it may be a podcast, tomorrow it may be a book, then it may be a movie. If you're a wife or a mother, those are different seasons. If you're single, and I think it's important to know who you are and know what you're called to do in each specific season, so that you're not held hostage by those things.
Such great wisdom, Tauren. And you mentioned that you've been asking this question, obviously, for a few years now, roughly 14. And it is such a lifelong journey. You know, I think in some ways we probably don't stop asking ourselves, or at least refining the way we apply this. Out of 12 out of those 14 years, you've been married to your wife, Lorna. How has coming into marriage with that sense of purpose and that sense of a why influenced the way that you guys relate to each other as a couple, as husband and wife?
That you are good at this. Oh my goodness. These questions are rich. Well, I think that it's helped us refine our why, because we quickly realized that we really needed to know who we were as individuals, and that we were not each other's source. It's a tricky thing, because culture has been telling us our entire lives that you really aren't anyone unless you have someone significant, or if you are not someone to someone else. And I think we carried some of that into our marriage. Like, my wife speaks very openly about it. Like, in her eyes, I was this perfect, awesome human and had no flaws and was just constantly amazing. It didn't take very long to get into our marriage where she realized that was absolutely not true.
Yeah.
But it really was like a big shift. And she realized, as much as she loved Jesus and followed Jesus, that I had become a source for her of joy and all of that, and vice versa. Like, she was a source of security and confidence for me. And really, we're just resources. We are people that God has placed in each other's lives to benefit and help and come alongside, but we cannot be the foundation. And that's been a big shift, because you approach each other and you handle each other differently when you take the God savior complex off of your spouse. Like, they're supposed to fix your problems. They're supposed to be there to fill in all of the gaps and stuff, and realize that really only God can do that.
And that's certainly got to take a lot of pressure off of you as a husband, and obviously Lorna as a wife, to be like, I don't have to be the source of everything for my spouse. Yes, I'm going to support them. Yes, I'm going to, as you've put it, try to call greatness out of them, but you don't have to be the complete place of that, which I think is a real, great understanding to have. And now as a dad of 4 boys, wild life, fun life, how do you apply this idea of calling greatness out of people as a father in their lives?
Yeah. First, trying to model it, trying to model the type of man that I want my sons to become, which is not necessarily being big and strong and, all of the things that we kind of appropriate with manhood. That's really more cultural manhood than biblical manhood. I want my sons to be able to be strong but vulnerable. Like there's so much strength and honesty. Um, trying to get them to think outside of themselves, that celebrating other people is more important than being celebrated yourself. We constantly talk about how leadership is not position, it's influence. Just, those types of things, so that I can get them understanding you don't have to be the star, you don't have to be on stage to be significant. Like there is a difference between being well known and being significant. And that's what I'm trying to get them to aim their lives at, more so through modeling it and then trying to obviously teach it, uh, as feeble as my attempts may be.
Yeah, and as much as they might get, kind of under your skin a little bit sometimes as kids do, but it's also really important that I think as they grow up seeing you on a stage and doing what you do through having a platform, through having a level of recognizability, that they know that for you as their dad, that's not kind of the key thing that you're actually trying to then, model, as you've said, for them. But your music is, of course, an amazing part of how you bring your ideas and your experiences to audiences. And your new album, Joy in the Morning, is debuting soon. Love that title. Why did you want to lead with that concept?
Well, I think this is going to be a common answer for anyone coming out with music in the next year or so. But I mean, the hope is that when people hear this album, they see the horizon, because we have been in dark times. There's been some difficult things that we have all journeyed through over the past 24 months, and I just want to remind people that the sun still rises, that the morning still comes, that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And that joy is not just a flimsy, temporary, momentary type of happiness. It is something deep and abiding. It's something that runs beneath the surface of the difficulties and the stressors that we face in life. And even more so than that, I want to remind people that there is a great morning coming that is beyond just the sun rising every day or a situation in your life changing. Eventually, we are going to step out of this reality and into something more real called eternity. And in that place, the sun always shines, that there are no tears, there is no weeping, there is no sickness, there is no disease, there is no racism, there is no injustice. There is only the goodness and the glory of God that shines forever and ever throughout eternity. And so if I can get people's eyes fixed on that horizon through this album, then all of the effort and the time will have been worth it.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work to put a full album together. And as I said right at the top of this interview, your work ethic and the intentionality that you bring to the projects you work on really is just so evident. And I saw recently in the way that you put your music together, you are more intentional about not wanting it to be an escape for people, as you said, but more an entrance for people. What's the thinking there? Because music and entertainment can so often be escape and escapism. What is it that you're wanting people to enter into as they listen?
Well, I realized that there was a different way to look at it there when I heard another artist and they were saying it in a really great way. And it is true that, art, books, movies, music is how we can transport ourselves to a different time and place. And I think that's the beautiful gift that creativity gives us. But I think the other side of that is creativity gives us room to process our real lives in real time. And if all we use art and entertainment for is to escape our lives, then we're never really experiencing the full spectrum of what life really is. And so I want people to be able to listen to my album and think about how they're doing as a friend. You know, I've got a song on the album called Use a Friend, and it's just about being a faithful friend, like in the good times and in the bad times, ride or die. And I want to remind people that you can still make music that's thoughtful, that considers real life, real events in real time, and can kind of like remind us of some virtues that matter, you know, some things that matter. I've got a song called Has to Be God that just talks about a love that has to be God. It's the love that I have for my wife. It's the love that I have for my kids and people that are really close to me. Like, this was divinely orchestrated. And I think remembering that these relationships are holy. They're gifts from God. They are divine. It's not just casual or circumstantial. And that doesn't always sound like a worship song. You know, it's different. So yeah, I don't want people to listen to my album to get away from their life. I want them to listen to it maybe to re-enter their lives for the first time, to enter into their brokenness and allow the gospel to come alive in it, to enter into their marriage and to realize, as a man, maybe I need to be more empathetic toward my wife. And instead of bringing my toolbox to fix everything all the time, I just need to bring my ears to listen.
Yeah.
Like those types of things, like, I think help us along the way.
One of the songs that just so got me, and I think will stir emotion in a lot of people that listen to it, is the single Empty, which speaks about reaching the highest heights and yet still feeling this vacancy within ourselves. And whether you are somebody who lives a life that has that level of kind of platform or, you know, public exposure, I think it's a feeling that we can all identify with. What was the birth of that song for you? Because it's just so painful but so true, and yet hopeful in there a little bit as well.
Yeah, right. Thank you for listening to that song. I appreciate it. Empty. It's one of my favorite songs on the album. I know every artist says that about every song, but I love my songs like I love my kids. I don't love them all the same. I love them uniquely. Like, there are things about them that make them just them that I just love. And it's the same thing with all these songs. Empty was a song that I started, and it perfectly describes exactly what I was feeling. My family had just moved into a new house, certainly the nicest house that I had ever lived in. I was in my writing studio, which, you know, I'm used to writing songs in basements and in closets. Like, literally, we have pictures from family vacations where I'm in the closet with a blanket over my head, like recording vocals. So to have my own space was like, wow, this is amazing. I've got this sounds like a flex, but it's really not. Just let me get to the point. I've got these plaques hanging on the wall of songs that have been celebrated and sung and played by people, which is mind blowing. I like can't believe it. Upstairs, I can hear my family, like my little boy's footsteps just pounding around the upstairs. And I'm like, I have these amazing little boys, and my wife is in the kitchen probably cooking my favorite meal. And we're getting ready, of all the times, we're getting ready for my family to come over because there's an award show on television coming on and I'm nominated for it. And it's like, this is the dream. This is what people dream about. I didn't even know to dream, and I didn't think it was possible. And yet I'm in my writing room and I'm just down. And although I'm surrounded by more than I deserve and certainly more than I need, I go over to the piano, and in the first, I mean, literally 10 seconds, it's like you could have it all and still feel empty. And that's all I wrote. I just wrote that little chorus. You could have it all and still be empty. And it was time to move on to the award ceremony. And I, enjoyed it. And I actually won some awards, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And still, you can't avoid the moments when it all feels like nothing. And this was the journey that history books say the wisest man who ever lived, Solomon, was on, when he said, man, I've literally done it all. And I haven't done it all. There are people, who dwarf my success. But he's the wealthiest person. He's had way too many women to keep track of. He has had children and influence and things and buildings and influence and all of that. And he's considering it all in the latter part of his life. And he's like, it's really all nothing. And for me, as being someone who is very driven, like you've mentioned before, very ambitious, always trying to figure out the line of, am I the servant in the Bible who's bearing my talent, or am I the guy who's multiplying it? And trying to figure out the balance of multiplying what you've been given to steward, but not being overly ambitious. I'm finding that there is no fulfillment in success if you are looking for fulfillment from success. There's no fulfillment, ultimate fulfillment, from having beautiful children if you're looking for fulfillment from beautiful children. There is no fulfillment, ultimate fulfillment, from having a supportive, amazing, beautiful wife if that's where you're looking for ultimate fulfillment from. There is only one source of ultimate fulfillment. And I think my heart is always trying to move Jesus off of the throne and put these other ambitions and even good things on it. And that song, Empty, is a reminder, even for me, that even if I was able to attain it all, if I was looking for my ultimate fulfillment in it all, I would still be empty. And I think, like you said, you don't have to be on a stage or in the spotlight to know what that feels like. And I think that's why it's connecting with so many people.
And I think, isn't it God, or isn't it just timely that, of course, you get those lyrics for that song and you have that moment of clarity right before you were about to, as you say, win a couple of awards. It's like you just got that little check before you had a moment where maybe your heart, as you say, would have taken things that direction. But Tauren, it has been such a pleasure chatting with you. I only wish we had more time to continue the conversation, but a reminder to people listening, your album Joy in the Morning is out. You can check that out now. Tauren, thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.